Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new week edition of Sirhan on X live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a great week and weekend over the last several days as I took a bit of a time out and I got a chance to enjoy myself a little bit. Was on a NFL show this past Thursday with, I see a couple of you guys out here, James, Joseph, and you guys over at Wager Wire. As always, thank you guys for having me on that. Friday night, I was at a hockey game, enjoyed it. Saturday and Sunday, I just took the weekend off to observe what's going on in the NFL and boxing worlds. And here I am today to analyze a bunch of it because I have a lot to get to, and I mean a lot. Because it's crazy for an off season. It's gotten, pandemonium all over the place in the sports world. And I would think maybe the NFL would sort of die down, but it's getting hot now with the franchise tag season about to come to a close and free agency starting. Of teams still wanting out, wanting in, wanting contracts. And of course, a wild fiasco in boxing that took place in New York over the weekend, which I'm going to get to because there's a lot that needs to be said, and I'm going to say it. I'll get to that in a minute. But a couple of things I want to touch on before I proceed. First of all, news broke over the weekend that the Spurs head coach Greg Popovich is not going to return for the season, and his future is in doubt. As someone who's been a Greg Popovich fan during his time in the NBA, whatever he does, he's still an all-time great. I mean, his career resume speaks for itself. 3-time Coach of the Year, 5-time NBA champion, gold medalist in the 2020 Olympics, winningest coach in NBA history, all with one team. And that 19-year period from 97 to 2016, when he had the great Tim Duncan, the Spurs had the top winning percentage at the NBA at the time. I don't think it's NBA. I think it's all sports in terms of winning percentage. I mean, the thing I always liked about Pop was he was one of these guys that took whatever sophisticated and made it simple to where it was easy for him. I mean, that's why he basically spins reporters around like records and he owns them pretty much. That's why Greg Popovich was an all-time great coach. A lot of people put him as the greatest ever, subject to opinion. I don't partake in greatest of all time talk in any sport because there's so much criteria and so much to consider and even think about. But, if this is the end of Greg Popovich, the guy's an all-time great, whether people like it or not. I mean, his place in history is forever secure. Of course, the capper was in 2023 when he's inducted into the Hall of Fame, where he called the whole thing surreal, which it was. But the thing is, Greg Popovich needs to get healthy. And if it is the end, what a terrific career. I mean, just do everything with one team at a time when NBA coaching the turnover is quick and rampant. I mean, these days, for him to do this for the better half of 2.5 decades with one team speaks to the excellence of Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs organization. So good luck with him. Whatever he does, if he comes back, terrific. If not, that's great too. He had a terrific run. I mean, it's all up to him. And of course, here in Cincinnati, news broke over the weekend that I guess Rob Manfred, the idiotic, pathetic, no good for nothing baseball commissioner, now says he wants to uplift the ban of Pete Rose. Well, it makes sense he wants to uplift it because Pete Rose is no longer on this planet Earth. But Pete Rose told you guys before he passed, if you're not going to do it while he's alive, why do you want to do it after he passes? Of course, this comes after the so-called rant by Donald Trump, where he says he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he's doing it because of the president or if he's doing it because out of spite. But whatever it is, Pete Rose pretty much said, if you're not going to put me in the Hall of Fame when I was alive, don't put me in when I'm dead. We'll see where this one goes. It's going to cause sparks all over the place, especially here in Cincinnati, which I'll get to when the time comes. Now I'm going to go ahead and divulge into the crux of what I was going to talk about today. Of course, the big one is, of course, the NFL salary cap rose to, I think it's $277.1 million this season. And a lot of people making it seem like it's that big of a deal. Here's the problem. Players, as the salary cap rises, the players want a bigger piece of the pie. I mean, you're not going to get 4 or 5 players as the salary cap rises because you have players wanting, want a piece of the salary cap rise, especially with their agents and how everything is with TV contracts and everything coming up. A lot of people, especially here in Cincinnati, which I'll touch on here in a minute, think it's going to create more space for teams to sign players it depends on how you use the cap. But as I said, because it's rising up, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have more money to spend to get more players or more quality players on your roster, because some of these guys are going to want the lion's share of the pie. I mean, the contracts have gone up. The AAVs of these contracts have gone up. And as the salary cap rises, it's going to continue to go up. And I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal as people says it is. That's why I tell people to pause when it comes to all of these numbers. I mean, they were talking about going to the area of 280 plus million, which I don't know how true that is or not, because I don't trust anything that comes out of the mouths of the NFL and the NFLPA, because they don't give a darn about players, or they care about what's in their wallets. But interesting that the NFL goes this route. I don't think it'll be as big of a deal as people are making it out to be, simply because players are going to want the bigger piece of the pie. The contracts are going to go up as the salary cap rises. And of course, it's going to hit its peak here within the next year or two, because Brock Purdy, the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, Mr. Irrelevant as he was drafted, is going to get a ridiculous amount that's going to set the NFL ablaze, as everybody in the NFL community knows. So we'll see where this one goes. I don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making it out to be, because you still have to make cuts. You still have to make contract restructures to try and get players on your roster, the quality players and quality needs that teams are going to need, simply put. So I'm not going to make the big hubbub everybody else is. And on the same subject of the NFL, some rules, changes, proposals are taking place. I'll just break, I think, a few of these down as the best I can. First one is they're talking about touchbacks now going to the 35-yard line. Why don't you just eliminate kickoffs at this point? Because that's what you're headed toward. What's going to happen next? A touchback's going to go to midfield. Good luck. It's crazy how the NFL just wants to penalize defenses year in and year out with all of these touchback rule changes, simply because they want to move the touchback line up. I mean, it started from the 20 to the 25 to the 30 and to the 35. I don't know where they're coming up with this, because kickers are going to take that foot the ball and they're going to kick it out of the end zone for a touchback. I mean, if you're trying to alleviate touchbacks, I don't know if this is the way to go. Maybe just flat out do away with kickoffs at this point, because everybody knows that's what the NFL is headed toward. And they probably could get that within the next 3 to 5 years. They should have stuck it at the 20. I can understand the 25. But when I went up to the 30 this past season and to the 35 this season, now you're starting to get ridiculous. And it's crazy how the NFL rules work and how they react to some of the most wildest things you could probably react to. They talk about player safety. Problem is the NFL never gave a darn about player safety since the late Gene Upshaw was president of the NFL Players Association. And they haven't given a darn ever since, because they were talking about now an 18-game season, which now they've gone back and forth on. But I'm not even buying any of this. And this rule is basically just a part of why the NFL sometimes can become a real clown show when it comes to its rules. It's simple as that. Second one that was discussed. This one I find a little interesting. They're talking about bringing some kind of, I guess, automated or camera thing for first downs with like short yardage situations, as opposed to the chain gang or whatever the hell they want to call it. I don't know where this is going to go. I get they want to try and speed up the process, but I don't know how much better or how much helpful this is going to be, simply because I don't know what they're trying to accomplish with this. I was on an NFL show over the weekend, and it was something we all discussed, and we all pretty much unanimously agreed that this rule isn't going to get us anywhere, because nobody knows the crux of it. Nobody knows how this thing is going to pan out. And of course, this is an outcry from the so-called first down that was missed in that Buffalo KC AFC Championship game this past season, which I've always said all along. The NFL has the weirdest knee-jerk reactions to rule changes when it comes to basically one play at the weirdest moments ever. I make a point to a boatload of it. There's, of course, the overtime rules from the Buffalo-Kansas divisional game in 2021, where they changed that, among many others. So I don't know where this one is going to go either. I don't like it, because I think the chain gang, does it well enough, good enough. It's not like when they stretch the chains out, the chains break. But I find it hysterical that the NFL year in, year out finds one play in one crucial game, in one crucial moment, and wants to change the rules just because of that. I mean, I don't know where we're going to go with this. I just think the chain gang, as it is fine enough as it is. Because when they stretch those chains out, the chains don't break. I mean, I don't get the crux of what the NFL is doing. Gets to the public outcry from the morons in Buffalo who still cry robbery in the first down by Josh Allen, where the rule basically there wasn't enough evidence to overturn the call, which basically the NFL referees and rules committee said. I mean, and the NFL just wants to make their own rules because of one play and one critical moment. Anybody knows me knows I never pinpoint anything relates to officials because I said the playing is done on the field. Refs are human beings. They make mistakes. Got it. But is it worth crying over? No. Why? Because the players have to make the plays. The Chiefs made the plays. The Bills didn't in that AFC title game this season. And everybody needs to just shut up and move on. That's what it comes down to. And, of course, another rules proposition. I did not know this, so I was on the show this Thursday night. I actually like it. One possession and overtime for each team. And someone suggested 15-minute overtime periods. I can go with that. I actually love it. That way people in Buffalo and Cincinnati can shut up. That way people in Buffalo and Cincinnati can keep quiet. That way fans in Buffalo and Cincinnati can just watch the game and just have their way so you have nothing to cry about. Because that's all they do. We get it. Because one play on each team, you get your one chance, you score a touchdown each, and then after that, all hell breaks loose. Play the full quarter, don't play the 10 minutes, because I think the 10 minutes in overtime is absolutely moronic. If you're going to play 15-minute quarters in regulation, play for the full 15 minutes in overtime. But I've always said, because they have so many rule changes, I think maybe teams need to learn how to win in regulation so we don't have any overtime rules. That's where I lose a lot of the NFL community sometimes, because a lot of people, especially in Buffalo and Cincinnati, who like to whine about the stupidest things when it comes to officials, who likes to complain about the stupidest things when it comes to officials, and I don't even deal with them. Because anybody knows me knows I just unloaded on Cincinnati after they got eliminated from the playoffs, and rightfully so, because they couldn't beat the New England Patriots week 1, and they're still crying about me about it. Have at it. I told you from week 1. I put this on my mouth. I'm not going to bend the knee. I'm not going to drop down on my knees and bend you over and kiss your butt. And I'm just going to tell it like it is to your face, whether you like it or not. You can put my name in your mouth all you want, Cincinnati. I don't care. You want to label me public enemy number 1? Have at it. I saw some of you guys Friday night at the hockey game. I'm not going to put names to it. You know who you are. But it's okay. That is what it is. But back to the rules. I love it. That way everybody can shut up and just watch the game. And if you're still going to complain about the rules like they do in Buffalo and Cincinnati, you guys are softer than cotton tissue, and I will not be dealing with you. Plain and simple. Don't just like every year they always have some kind of rule change over something stupid. I mean, they pick one play, and everybody has a knee-jerk reaction, especially in Buffalo and Cincinnati. Plain and simple. But I'll get to rule changes down the line because I know closer to the season they're going to try and pass some of this, because that's how Roger Goodell is. And people in Buffalo and Cincinnati like to put their foots down, whine like babies, and just act like the biggest bunch of you-know-what since the recreation of time. Actually, see if I can find this here. Every time I think of Cincinnati, I think of this. That's all I need to know when I think of Cincinnati. See if we get out of this here. And Buffalo, you could probably say the same thing too. Enough of the rules changes, because everyone has pretty much had it with all the rules changes. Maybe just let the players play and let the rules play themselves out. Now to some real NFL news. Maybe the shocker over the weekend was Deebo Samuel being traded from San Fran to Washington for a 5th-round draft pick. Think about a player of Deebo Samuel's caliber traded for a 5th-round draft pick. Maybe it's because they wanted to get rid of Deebo Samuel the worst way possible in San Francisco. They got tired of his act. I know part of us, Deebo Samuel wanted out, and Deebo Samuel got his wish. If he's right and he's healthy, it's another weapon for Jaden Daniels. I mean, but the thing is, can he be right and can he be healthy? Because that's something he hasn't been really since he came into the NFL. It's been several years he's had a full healthy season. I can't remember when that was. But if he holds up in Washington, it's It's a solid get. Basically, going to call it this a low risk, high reward move because the Commanders give up basically a fifth for him. I mean, if it doesn't work out, they could just cut bait. If it works out, it's another weapon for Jaden Daniels. Of course, Washington has other holes to fill, but they needed somebody opposite of Terry McLaurin, and I think Deebo Samuel can hold up. He could probably provide that. Interesting acquisition at an interesting time because the talk was is it probably Baltimore, Pittsburgh, a couple of other teams. I know Baltimore last minute said no. I don't know what Pittsburgh's deal was, but the deal was it was going to be Washington, and if he if he holds up well and can stay healthy, it's a nice weapon for Washington, nice weapon for Jaden Daniels. They'll have to fix that defense a little bit because they got dog walked by Philly in the NFC title game. But Washington, I think, is headed up. They got their quarterback in the standout, Jaden Daniels, who's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, right there with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts. So we can go from there, and they have a hell of a team over there in Washington. Jaden Daniels is a top 5 quarterback. And I want to know who the idiot was who voted Brock Bowers the Rookie of the Year over Jaden Daniels, since he has a balls to show up. But it's okay. He can just hide. Karma's going to get him at the right time. Now to Northeastern Ohio. Myles Garrett basically stood firm on his stance and doubled down, basically saying, I don't want to play for Cleveland anymore. I told everybody in Northeastern Ohio for the last 3 years, I feel like this is a broken record. Nobody wanted to listen. I want to say it again. This is a byproduct of when you forked out that draft capital to Houston for Deshaun Watson 3 years ago. And you threw Baker Mayfield under the bus. And you fully guaranteed that contract to Deshaun Watson. This is going to be one of the domino effects out of it. And the fact it comes to your franchise player, the guy who's been the face of your franchise since you drafted him, and for him to come out and say this tells you all you need to know. Okay? I don't want to hear about Andrew Berry being a salary cap specialist because that time has run out. I mean, if they want to cut bait with Deshaun Watson, good luck, because you're talking about a $192 million cap hit spread out over the next 3 seasons. And basically, with Myles Garrett, the guy basically said straight up countless times, he doesn't want to leave Cleveland. He wanted to stay in Cleveland his whole career. He admitted it. But he said straight up, I'm not going to be part of a rebuild. And guess what they're doing in Cleveland? They're going to be part of a rebuild. Probably drafting a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward. I heard I can't think of the guy's name. I think it's Jackson Hurt, I think is what his name is. Talking about him. But this is a byproduct of what happened 3 years ago when you forked out the draft capital to get Deshaun Watson, fully guarantee him the contract, and basically gave you next to nothing ever since you signed him to that contract and forked out all that draft capital. Was it really worth it at the end? Because you guys in Cleveland are just, I thought dealing with people in Cincinnati are weird. Dealing with you guys in Northeastern Ohio may be as weird as them. I mean, I'm in the middle. Like my left arm is filled with Bengals fans. My right arm is filled with Browns fans. You guys are pulling me aside, telling me who's the bigger clown of the bunch. Okay, let me just set the record straight with this. 1 minute you're putting Myles Garrett over T.J. Watt and Trey Hendrickson, and Max Crosby, among many other standout edge rushers. Now he wants out. You guys are now saying he never was in the same category as Watt or Hendrickson or Crosby, among others. Excuse me. We tried to tell you this was the deal for the longest time. You guys waited until he wanted to leave Cleveland to basically throw him under the bus. We told you the same thing about Deshaun Watson 3 years ago. You waited till now till you decided to throw him under the bus. Here's the thing. And this is where I lost a lot of the NFL community the first time I was in this many years ago. You guys are just so inconsistent with how you rate players, how you rank players, how you guys say he's one thing 1 minute, next thing the next. And when they start to get tough and they want to change the environment, you guys want to throw them under the bus. I never understand it. Look, as someone who's a Cincinnati fan myself, I love the hell out of Myles Garrett. I mean, you talk about top 5 edge rusher when he's on. I never put him in the same category as a T.J. Watt or a Max Crosby. Maybe right there a Trey Hendrickson, but that's a whole different dynamic. But you guys waited till after he wants out to basically throw him under the bus and say he was never in the same conversation as TJ Watt, when Steelers fans told you to your faces for the last 5 years, Myles Garrett, as good as he is not in the same conversation as TJ Watt. Come on. We told you this for the longest time. Why did you have to wait until till Myles Garrett decided that finally he wanted to be done with you so you could be done with him? That's why, when it comes to sports fandom, I just sit back and laugh at your clownism. It's all over the sports, but more so in Cincinnati and Cleveland. Actually, right now I'm talking about Cleveland because they're the brunt of it, and deservedly so. I told you 3 years ago this is going to be the result when you guys were so obsessed with wanting a quarterback who had 26 allegations, forked out 3 first-round picks, fully guaranteed a contract, and you guys acted like you were going to overtake Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati for the North, and you was find a way to overtake Kansas City in the AFC. Didn't even come close. You only had 1 playoff appearance, and guess who got you to the playoffs? It wasn't Deshaun Watson. You picked up the phone and called Joe Flacco off the couch. That's how you got to the playoffs. And now, because of everything that's happened, the face of your franchise wants out. I can't blame him. He said he didn't want to be a part of a rebuild. You guys are getting offended by it. And now, good luck. Because what's going to happen in the next several years, I don't even know what to tell you. Because Steelers fans and Ravens fans tried to warn you guys for the longest time what the result was going to be. You didn't want to listen. Heck, the whole entire NFL tried to tell you what the result was going to be. You didn't want to listen. Now you want to listen after the fact? Sorry. As I said all along to you guys in Northeastern Ohio, you made your bed. Then, when you wanted Deshaun Watson, guess what? Zip your lips. Go lie in it. Because that's where you belong right now. Plain and simple. I'll probably talk about this more because I heard it's like a $36 million cap hit where I guess that's what Cleveland's going to have to suffice if they want to trade him. But Myles Garrett to stand firm. I mean, he wants to play for a winner. He wants to play for a Super Bowl contender. Who could blame him? He bent over backwards for that Cleveland franchise. They did him dirty by fully guaranteeing a contract to an individual who had 26 allegations, and they're getting what they deserve as a result. From Northeastern Ohio to Southwestern Ohio. Now I'm going to have a lot of fun because everybody here in Cincinnati said that T. Higgins was going to get a contract extension with Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson. Guess what happened today? For the second straight season, T. Higgins got franchise tagged. Think about it. 3 years ago, after you lost to Kansas City in the 2022 AFC title game, you had a chance to get maybe a 2 to 3 year deal to do away with the drama. Nobody wanted to do that. 2023, T. Higgins had a okay year marred by injury. Offseason, the Bengals franchise tagged him in 2024, thinking they were going to get a contract, for the next couple of years. Didn't happen. This season, replay of 2024. They wanted to keep T. Higgins. They're keeping him on a franchise tag. 2 seasons, you're keeping a player on a franchise tag. If I'm T. Higgins, I'm insulted right now because it's one of the most unprofessional things I've ever heard and I've ever encountered. But then again, we are talking about Cincinnati, who's the poster child of unprofessionalism and basically bad ethics, among many other things. Jamar Chase wants to be paid as the highest paid non-quarterback player in NFL history. I expect him to get that. I expect the deal to be done. I know it was talked about last season, which I thought that should have been done last season, but because the Cincinnati, per usual, 2 miles behind the 8 ball, didn't bother to give him what he wanted. He's going to have to go through this again. But this time, Jamar Chase's value has gone up because you talk about, of course, the Triple Crown winner who was number 1 across the board in every major statistical category as a wide receiver, arguably the best receiver in 2024. And now he's going to want the full contract. He's going to want to be paid as such. T. Higgins, I think his tag this year is like 26.2 mil or something like that. I can't remember. You could have had this issue resolved 2 years ago, but you didn't want to do it. You just want to resort to franchise tag. It's one thing when you franchise tag for somebody for 1 year, which I understand it. I mean, I get it. But to do this for 2 straight seasons, it is basically the same story, almost like a carbon copy of what Cincinnati went through in 2024. It's the biggest bunch of insults you could probably do, and nobody's going to insult my intelligence on this one. But this was the expectation. Everybody expected this to happen, and that now Cincinnati's continuing to say, we're working on a long-term deal. My eyes would be the ultimate dictator, not the mouths of Bengals fans or the media people or the content creators, because they talk so much out of their, as opposed to their mouths, because they don't know how to think. Plain and simple. But I don't know what's going to happen with T. Higgins. I hope he can get a contract extension because he's been a fixture here in Cincinnati. But word was swirling, the guy wants north of $30+ million a year. Understandably so. He wants to be paid like a wide receiver number 1. He wants to be treated like a wide receiver number 1. Of course, Joe Burrow has come out and said, pay the man. But of course, everybody in Cincinnati knows how the Bengals front office works. I don't know what's going to happen because I'm not a fortune teller. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have one of those 6-foot wigs on my head. I'm not going to sit here, have this crazy meditation like they do in the Japanese, whatever the hell you want to call it, looking like this. Because that's not who I am. I expect Jamar Chase to get paid. He's probably going to have to play on the tag for a second straight year. And there's more questions that's going to have to be answered if they don't sign up to a longer-term deal. And I mean, there's going to be some real questions. To tag someone for a second straight year through the same circumstances that you went through last year, the exact same way, what does that say at the end of the day? I could bust out all the questions I want, but we're talking about Cincinnati and their front office and a fan base that's filled with people who love Skyline chili, alcohol, heroin, and criminal records, which I don't even deal with. We're talking about Bengals fans. There's super fans like Zim, Captain, all those idiots. The media people like Sarah Elise, Mo Egger, yada, 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 who carry themselves like idiots. And the content creators, I can go on and on with them. All the same thing. Skyline chili, alcohol, heroin, criminal records. I don't know how the game of NFL works. Because to fit in these contracts, now they have to gut the roster. They just released Alex Kappa today. They're talking about releasing Sam Hubbard. I know just not too long ago, they released Sheldon Rankins. You're going to have to gut a defense that has just been the bottom barrel last 2 seasons. And if you sign the top dollars to Chase and Higgins unless someone leaves money on the table, which I don't expect to happen. If you expect, if you in Cincinnati expect the Bengals to sign Chase and Higgins without having to gut the roster, you have another thing coming. I mean, you have some decent amount of cap space, but with all that cap space, those 2 guys want top dollar. Good luck, because you're going to need an offensive line again for the 3rd straight season, which is getting tiresome. I don't know why they can't fix the offensive line correctly. I mean, you're relying on an overpaid Orlando Brown Jr. who's brought nothing to the table since he's come to Cincinnati. You're basically going to send guys on last-term contracts out the door, and you basically suffice a 7th-round draft pick for a 7th-string running back who couldn't cut the mustard last season when he got him from Chicago. That's Khalil Herbert. Good luck in Cincinnati trying to manipulate this. Because I told you guys a long time ago what you guys are all about. I told you guys I told you guys after you were officially eliminated when Denver beat Kansas City what you guys were all about. I mean, I hope they all can stay. I genuinely do. I hope they stay. But you guys better have a better grip of how the salary cap works, because you guys can't think straight up here because you're so fixated on Skyline chili, alcohol, drugs, and criminal records. Doesn't work that way. I'll deal with Cincinnati later because I have a lot to get to. What's up with my views all of a sudden? Speaking of the tag, I'll tell you who got tagged, and I expect the deal to get done, and it probably will get done. It's over in Kansas City. I expect Trey Smith, who was tagged over the weekend, to get a deal done, and that I expect that to be done probably at some point this season. I know Chiefs have to do some cap wrangling, but I think they will get it done. I can't see them letting go a piece of that offensive line because they have a franchise quarterback in Patrick Mahomes they have to protect. Now, they do have to answer for the left tackle position because that was a problem as the season wore on, which reared its ugly head in the Super Bowl because Joe Tooney got basically mugged by Josh Sweat. But I expect Trey Smith to have a contract there. And I expect a deal to be done. I know that he's tied right now, but I expect the deal to be done because Brett Veach, I'm sure, is going to put something together. They do need to address the left tackle position, obviously. I'm expecting to maybe take a look at a guy like a Ronnie Stanley, who I think would be a solid fit. But I expect Trey Smith to stay in Kansas City for the longer term because I think it would be absolutely crazy if they don't keep him because they have a franchise quarterback to protect. They just signed Creed Humphrey, arguably the best center of the NFL, to the contract. I know they have Joe Thuney still under contract, I think another year or two. And I expect Trey Smith to have the next one done. I'm sure something that will be reached remains to be seen. And a bit of a stunner in LA, it was Matthew Stafford and the Rams agreeing to some sort of a restructured deal. Simply put, it's because, nobody wanted his service for that contract, and the Rams' asking price was through the roof. Apparently, they're asking for as much as a first or a second round draft pick, which they weren't getting. But I thought it was crazy for the Rams to even consider moving on from Matthew Stafford and vice versa. I think they got the deal they wanted. Nobody knows the parameters yet. I don't. But I expect that they had come to an agreement to where he's going to be in LA. I believe it's like the next 2 seasons. So we'll see where this one goes. But I was shocked when I heard that he was going to be looking to go somewhere else. I couldn't see him being a fit anywhere else. I thought him and LA were just the match made in heaven for it to not be anything different. I never thought I would spend more and more time in the NFL than I have on my own show the last few weeks. But here I am. Everybody wanted me back in the NFL community. I'm back. And by the way, for those who welcome me back, thank you. I'll go talking more NFL here down the line. I just got a show coming up with a bunch of people tomorrow night. Now, to all my fight followers, I see a few of you out here. I think we know what the Hub Pub was over the weekend that took place in Brooklyn. This was Tank Davis and Lamont Roach. We know the story. Tank Davis takes a knee. Referee starts a count and then just gives it to some ugly verbiage. I don't know what the frick he was trying to do or say. Fight was ruled a draw where I thought Lamont Roach won convincingly. And all of a sudden, the New York State Athletic Commission wants to review this. I'm not expecting anything to be done. Maybe this just turns to a no contest at best. But either way, this reminds me of what happened when Deontay Wilder, who was protected like Tank Davis, when Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury the first time. We saw what happened here. When Tank Davis stepped up and fought Lamont Roach, exact same thing. He fought a guy who they couldn't hurt. They fought a guy who could take their punch, and they fought a guy who could utilize the ring and utilize their skills. And of course, there's this idiot named Eli Stylback, whatever the frick that idiot's name is, trying to defend Tank Davis because he's a spineless coward who's afraid to confront you face to face. But anybody with a brain knows the real winner that night was Lamont Roach. I mean, even if you want to give Tank Davis the win, Lamont Roach won the night because he showed the whole world Tank Davis is not all that. Because I said all along, Tank Davis's best win was against a depleted Ryan Garcia. After all this so-called wild weight clauses or whatever the frick they did to him. But even then, I didn't think it was necessary because I thought Tank Davis was still miles better than Ryan Garcia, just simply because Ryan Garcia is into politics, racism, and being a homophobic and being a clown and a coward. I thought Tank Davis would have beat him without the rules or the weight stipulations. But this reminds me of what happened to Deontay Wilder when he finally stepped up against Tyson Fury. We saw what happened there. That was all she wrote. And of course, Tank Davis said he's not going to rematch Lamont Roach. We know why. Because Lamont Roach is going to probably beat him again. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we get it. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get it. Let me remind you, this is the same Tank Davis who said he wanted $40 million to Ferraris and a Lamborghini to fight a fading Vasily Lomachenko. Not the peak Vasily Lomachenko. A faded Vasily Lomachenko. $40 million, 2 Ferraris, and a Lambo. Tells you all need to know. The guy doesn't want to fight anyone with any ability. The guy wants to set his own rules. The guy wants to do everything his way. And when he finally fought someone who in a fair, straight down the middle, without any stipulations, when he finally fought someone who wouldn't bend the knee to that, We saw what happened Saturday night. Because I said all along, we haven't seen Tank Davis pushed. This is the first time we've seen him get pushed, and we've seen what happened. Because I was on a recording a couple weeks ago. I was asked about overrated fighters. I put him there because I haven't seen this guy push, I guess, a guy who was not afraid to step up to him. I mean, the guy, that's why we haven't seen him fight Devin Haney, and that's why we haven't seen him fight Shakur Stevenson. Forget Teo Lopez, a guy's a racist and a coward. He doesn't count. And of course, we had Tank Davis fans who are idiotic enough to think he would knock out Terrence Crawford in a catchweight fight. If you still think, most notably Ray Jackson, who's the bona fide coward of them all, if Ray Jackson, the coward, legitimately thinks Tank Davis knocks out Terrence Crawford, tell him to shut his mouth, get off this app, go to a hospital, get checked for CTE, and if he has why, tell him it's because he's stupid enough to think Tank Davis beats Terrence Crawford. Make sure you get the results, send them to me so I can find out what's wrong with him. Nobody could be that stupid after Saturday night. Nobody. Give me a break. Tank Davis was exposed. I'm sorry he was. I mean, no one's going to mistake Lamont Roach for the second coming of Pernell Whitaker or Roberto Duran or Henry Armstrong. But maybe this is who Tank Davis is at the end of the day. There's a reason why he was protected. There's a reason why we haven't seen him against top-notch fighters. And remind you guys, Tank Davis fans, also one thing. This is the same Lamont Roach that got his butt handed to him by Jamel Herring not too long ago. And this happened Saturday night to your idol, your hero, guy filled with tattoos, criminal records, and living in Baltimore, Tank Davis, who got exactly what he deserved. And we know about the whole knee shebang. We know anybody with a brain knows what that was all about. And Tank Davis didn't even have a moment I can think of to where you could say, he's going to win this fight. He didn't even have anything close to that moment. Lamont Roach controlled that fight from start to finish. And I personally acknowledge, to all you guys who back Lamont Roach, I salute you. I also apologize to you because I did not think that was going to happen. Maybe there's a reason why Tank Davis won't mention the name Shakur Stevenson. That's why. Because you can say what you want about Shakur Stevenson. You can say anything you want about Shakur Stevenson. But if he gets Tank Davis in that ring, he's going to utilize that ring as a hit, 1-2 him all night on the southpaw stance. There's a reason why Tank Davis never wants to mention Shakur Stevenson. Everybody knows. You can say a lot of things about him, but it is what it is. Yeah, it looks like we're going to get a rematch. I know the New York State Athletic Commission is going to rule it. Some people are calling for an overturn. I doubt that happens. I wouldn't be surprised if the end result is a no contest. But the referee of that night needs to be thoroughly investigated for how he blatantly broke a rule on camera with that whole situation with the knee. I mean, counts one and then just tells him you can't take a knee. Weird. And I actually like Steve Willis too. He's a heck of a referee, always with the character and the funky looks and everything. But we'll deal with Tank Davis later. This situation, I have an itch. We're going to get a rematch, even though Tank Davis says he doesn't. Something's going to come up out of this. I don't know what's going to happen. On to some historical significance. Of course, over the weekend, the world lost one of the toughest guys in the business in Greg Haugen. Speaking of, you were talking about tough lightweights. Greg Haugen was that for his time. I mean, was involved in tough man contests as a guy who was a 120, 130 pounder, fighting guys like massively bigger than him. Had 3 fights with Vinny Pazienza at a time when network TV, NBC was the premier television show for boxing. And the Pazienza Haugen trilogy was basically one of the staples at that time. We talk about action. Neither guy was going to mount to an all-time great, but they gave 3 excellent fights with just pure hatred for one another. I mean, we can talk about rivalries in boxing where people just are all talk and don't bite. Vinny Pazienza and Greg Haugen hated each other to a passion and still did till Haugen recently passed. But when it comes to Greg Haugen, 2 times the world lightweight champ, won a world title at junior welterweight when he shocked Hector Camacho in 1991. Stunned the world back in 86 when he beat Jimmy Paul. Of course, went to Mexico in front of 132,000 fans to fight Julio Cesar Chavez. And had a very gutsy give-and-take fight against Tony Lopez in 1994. A very, very sound lightweight who feared nobody from the Northwest, basically, and of course, moved to Henderson, Nevada. Basically, anytime he fought, always gave an honest effort. Of course, I should add, he went to Norfolk, Virginia to fight Pernell Whitaker. But Greg Haugen, basically, was a trash talker, wasn't afraid of anyone, and was basically a centerpiece of the boxing world. And we think about all the fights that were on network TV, whether it be NBC, ABC, ESPN. Greg Haugen was on a boatload of those and gave very, very good fights, very, very sound fights. Of course, the capper was the first fight he had when he went to Providence, Rhode Island to fight Vinny Pazienza, the first of the 3-fight trilogy on NBC. But Greg Haugen was just a tough, tough man. Fought the best out there, gave an honest effort, was crowd pleasing, was entertaining, and it was a sad loss for the boxing community. May Greg Haugen rest in peace. Speaking of great lightweights, I got two more to talk about the past. Actually, the first one is for all you Tank Davis fans, because you guys want to think Tank Davis is better than the guy I'm going to talk about. It was 50 years ago today in Panama City, where arguably the greatest lightweight of all time, Roberto Duran, to show the world why he was called Manos de Piedra, a.k.a. Hands of Stone, when he just beat down and bludgeoned Ray Lampkin in 14 rounds to retain the lightweight championship of the world. Before Tank Davis, before Loma, before all of these other skilled lightweights you want to talk about, you can call anybody the Matrix, you can call anybody whatever nickname you want. There was Roberto Duran in his own home country. I mean, he wasn't just one of those give or take brawlers. He had insane boxing ability too, and he showed it on this night. His ability to use the ring a little bit, use his hands, do anything and everything he wanted. And it was 50 years ago when he did everything he wanted to. A very standout lightweight in Ray Lampkin. I mean, Ray Lampkin was no pushover, and Duran just beat him from pillar to post from like the 5th round on. And the fight was basically stopped in the 14th round, where Lampkin was just down and was basically out. Everyone thinks that the Roberto Duran's no Master Sugar Ray Leonard in 80 means he's not in the same conversation as Tank Davis. You're right. He's not in the same conversation as Tank Davis, because Roberto Duran's so far over Tank Davis couldn't even see up that high. Because no way Roberto Duran lets Lamont Roach do to him what he did to Tank Davis Saturday night. Because when they say ring generalship and control of the ring and being the boss of the ring, maybe in the history of lightweight division, few, if any, compared to Roberto Duran what he was in the 70s. I make a point to all the fights. Ken Buchanan, the ones with Esteban de Jesus, and of course Ray Lampkin. The Lampkin fight was probably his vicious moment, because people got a chance to see the grit, the drive, and the determination that made Roberto Duran an all-time great. Arguably, some people call him the greatest lightweight of all time. Again, subject to your opinion. I don't partake in all-time conversations, because I think there's too much criteria involved. But when we talk about what he did in the 70s in that lightweight division, I mean, from when he won his first title against Ken Buchanan to when he ended it, when he just pulverized Esteban de Jesus in the 3rd of their trilogy, nobody was going to touch Roberto Duran. Nobody in any era. I mean, some guys, in this mythical matchups, I don't even partake in it. You could probably say have a snowball chance. A Benny Leonard, Ike Williams, Pernell Whitaker. But nobody knew the ring. And nobody knew how to viciously control and command the ring the way Roberto Duran did when he was at lightweight. And when he controlled Ray Lampkin that night. It was something unforeseen. You knew. Let me back up here. You knew greatness was coming. Because even Muhammad Ali said, I am the greatest, but behind me was Roberto Duran, who was a fighter, not named fighter of the decade of the 70s because of his tenure at lightweight. No, everybody remembers him for the 4 Kings with Leonard, Hearns, and Hagler. Understandably so, because we were treated to a delight when those 4 went at each other in the 80s. But I've said all along, Roberto Duran's legacy was the 70s in the lightweight division. And all the lightweights today, all of them put together, couldn't hold a candlelight to what Roberto Duran did in the 70s. No way. Some of you guys are so fixated on with the no Moss in 1980 when he fought Ray Leonard in the rematch. A lot of things were going on with him at the time. But you guys don't have a clear picture of what Roberto Duran was. And you guys still think, all of a sudden, because you see Tank Davis knockout, mediocre lightweight after mediocre lightweight, and even after he got what done to him by Lamont Roach, you still think he's going to be Roberto Duran at a lightweight? Some of you guys need severely check for CTE bad, and some of you guys need a thorough history lesson on just how great Roberto Duran was. Maybe instead of getting so fixated on Tank Davis, maybe pick up the history book, because it's out there. The video footage is out there with all of these YouTube, Rumble, whatever the heck. Pull up the footage, do the research on just how great Roberto Duran was at lightweight. Because all the lightweights today, collectively, can't hold a candlelight to him. It was 50 years ago today. He showed why he was arguably the greatest lightweight ever when he just pulverized and just begludgeoned Ray Lampkin, who's a hell of a lightweight. Actually, the beating was so bad, he was taken to the hospital, and the graciousness of Roberto Duran when he visited Ray Lampkin in the hospital after the fight tells you everything you need to know about Roberto Duran. That's why he was called the Hands of Stone. Nobody is going to come remotely close to what he did. Some of you guys are so suck at recency bias. I could use many more of these to school you guys if I want to, but I spare myself because some of you guys resort to whining and crying over stupid stuff, especially you guys in the PBC brand, the ones that support Tank Davis. And I conclude this with another lightweight fight because this one was what people were expecting Tank Davis to do to Lamont Roach. But I'm going to give you a shocker that took place 41 years ago in Beaumont, Texas. Because you guys complain about spending money. Here I have to bring this up again. This was in Beaumont, Texas, free TV, NBC, Marv Albert and Freddie Pacheco calling the fight. This was Roger Mayweather, a.k.a. you don't know a bazookas about boxing, taking on the standout and durable Rocky Lockridge. A win by Mayweather. He was headed for a unification showdown with Hector Camacho at the 130-pound weight class. At least he so thought. A 4-1 favorite against the tough and durable Lockridge. Always gives honest efforts. But it was on this night somebody got exposed because it didn't even last 90 seconds. A left to the combination, right hand over the top, which didn't do much. But then another left-right combination by Lockridge. Mayweather's down, bent over backwards on the canvas and out for the count. Counted out. Rocky Lockridge wins wins the super featherweight championship of the world. Again, another case where if you don't take care of business, you lose out on a lot. And that's what happened to Roger Mayweather. Basically, you can say he was never the same after this because he was knocked out in, I think, of his next 6 losses, he was knocked out 4 times, albeit twice by Julio Cesar Chavez, 1 time because he quit like a coward. But it was another case example of when you don't stay focused on the task in hand, you can lose out on a lot in the sport of boxing, and Roger Mayweather did that night. Now, kudos to Rocky Lockridge, who took advantage of the opportunity. Of course, Roger Mayweather thought he was hip because he went into the ring with a pair of sunglasses on and basically tried to taunt Rocky Lockridge before the pre-fight stare down. And basically, his trainer, Lou Duva, said, "Get your butt over there. We're going to go get you." And that's what happened. Basically, the first 70, 75 seconds, nothing happens. Then a couple left-right combinations, which didn't do anything till the right hand right on the button by Lockridge, and Roger Mayweather's bent over backwards on the canvas, and he's counted out. Rocky Lockridge wins the title. Roger Mayweather loses out on a lot. The only thing he has at that point is his name. Never ascended to the status like his nephew Floyd Mayweather did. Did win a couple world titles, but probably this is what he's going to be remembered for the most, simply because he got exposed and was all she wrote. I mean, he fought Chavez twice. He fought Pernell Whitaker. He fought Costa Tszyu. Could never win a big fight, even though he won a paper championship at 140 pounds. Didn't amount to anything at the end of the day. But for Rocky Lockridge, it was another case of a fighter who persevered and persevered and persevered until he got his opportunity to win the championship, which he took advantage of in Beaumont, Texas. And he reached his landmark moment. made a couple of defenses before he was victimized by a egregious decision to Puerto Rico by Roberto Gomez, which cost him the title. Anybody with a brain knows Lockridge won that fight. The only reason why he lost that fight was because of Don King politics. He later fights Julio Cesar Chavez. It gives him a terrific fight, even though he lost the decision. But had a terrific back and forth fight in 1988 against Tony Lopez for a vacant junior welterweight title, where he had Lopez floored. It looked like he was going to win, but Lopez came back to win it. But another guy, Rocky Lockridge, who gave an honest effort every time he fought, a guy who didn't duck anyone, fought the best out there, and had his crowning moment 41 years ago today at Beaumont, Texas, on free TV, when he just pulverized Roger Mayweather, pinned him down for the count, bent him over backwards, and that was all she wrote. It's stories like that makes boxing very, very intriguing. Not the one we saw Saturday night, because too many of you guys are so fixated on what you see on these. I'll just say the new wave technology as it is, and the recency bias. It's fights. If you go back to something like that, maybe you guys can be better fans, have a greater understanding of the sport. Because it's simply put, when I talk about the stuff of the past, I even talk about stuff before my time, because I like to draw a connection from what happened from then to what I saw to now. Because I dig deep into historical perspective of this, because nothing is worth talking about in our sport these days. I mean, we're sitting here talking about a guy who took a knee. Think about it. We're talking about a guy who took a knee Saturday night. And if that's your guy, I don't know what kind of a fan you are, and I don't know what the hell to tell you. Because if you're a fan of a guy who takes a knee blatantly, the way he did, Tank Davis did Saturday night, it's not even worth talking about. If you want to see what it's like to take care of business, watch what Roger Mayweather, Rocky Lockridge fight 41 years ago in Beaumont, Texas. That's how you take care of business. A left-right combination, bend the guy over backwards. He's down and out. Actually, I should add, the mouthpiece slowly came out, and that was all she wrote. Mayweather got up, but he basically got up 2 seconds after the count reached 10. I mean, that's all you need to know about Roger Mayweather. And that's how you take care of business. You knock him out early, and you go home. That's what Rocky Lockridge did 41 years ago. Well, I could talk about many, many more of these, but too many of you guys are so hooked up in the recency bias. That's why I've started to distance myself a little bit again. I mean, that's why I stick to the NFL community. That's why I stick to the historical part of the boxing community, because I try to understand why people say the things they do today. But it seems like we're filled with clowns, especially those who support the PBC brand and some moron called Brunch and Boxing named Matt. I don't know what the frick that coward's name is. But if that's who you support, I don't know what the hell to tell you. Because there's others you could go to. There's other avenues of sports boxing news you can go to. You guys fixate on some of the most stupidest things, and you have this vision like this, and you're so short-sighted, you don't even think about all the other things. I mean, that's why I don't deal with Dan Rayfield. I don't deal with that showbiz adult, whatever the frick he calls himself. Who's another moron. I do what these two eyes dictate. I see what these two eyes see. I don't partake in hyperbole. I don't partake in all of this, all the craziness you want to talk about, simply because I learned a long time ago that sometimes hyperbole doesn't get you anywhere. That everything is a title to opinion. I just go by what my eyes see, and I just analyze it. I don't pretend myself to be an insider, because if I try to be an insider, no one's going to give me anything. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm never going to say I'm the Mr. Know-it-all in the sport. I just go by what I see, what I read, what I understand, and during my time, what I witnessed. I don't do much. You guys act like when I do that, it's a big deal. Here's the problem. That's why I talk about the fights of the past to now, so you guys can understand what it was like back then. I mean, you guys say this A side, B side, champion, built, whatever. It was the same way during my time, but nobody made a big hubbub out of it the way you guys do today. It's simple. What happened on this night 41 years ago in Beaumont, Texas, what I saw was a left-right combination that bent Roger Mayweather down backwards, and it was all she wrote. And I don't want to hear about Tank Davis in the conversation of those two either, because what happened Saturday night, he doesn't even deserve it. Plain and simple. I haven't been this for the last few days, and now people want to stuff me with stuff to say. That's fine. I'll just go ahead and pick it apart. I'll be aiming to do better somewhere down the line. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. Thank you for all the views over here. I mean, I'm not going to, everybody knows me, knows I don't brag about having views, but I leave it to you guys. I mean, you guys do the views for me. I just do the talking. And I hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful rest of the 3rd of March, 2025. And as always, make self-care your number one priority in life. Take care of yourself first before you take care of anything else. Because if you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. I hope everyone has themselves a wonderful rest of the night. I will be back tomorrow night at a later time. I have an NFL show to do also. You guys can catch me on that on the X Network. But until then, have a good rest of the night. Take care of yourselves, and God bless.